So what's in a good kill kit for a backpack hunter? What things are you going to need? What things are you going to want to leave behind, perhaps, if you're trying to save weight, if you're counting every ounce, and everything that you're packing in and packing out is going to be on your own 2 feet. It's going to matter what you have in your pack. So I'm going to show you what I've got. What I've got in my system. I start with I've got this. It's a fairly robust. It's not even really ultralight bag that I do carry everything in for my kill kit, and I do that for a couple of reasons. Obviously, one, it's very high vis. If I set it down, this particular bag is not easily lost. But probably more important is I use it as a part of my shooting system. It's about 3.5 ounces for this particular bag. When I have my kill kit inside this bag, as a self-contained unit, I can pull this out of my backpack if I need to. I've now got a rear rest. I can support my my weight as I'm getting behind the rifle in a prone. I can use it to support the rear of my rifle as a rear bag. It has a multitude of uses. I have a same size and dimension of bag in a different color that's got my puffy jackets and whatnot that serves a similar purpose. I can really build myself a really good solid shooting rest with this as a kind of multi-purpose tool in and of itself. But let's look at what we're going to have actually in the kit itself and what each piece is going to serve. So let me just dump this all out here. Have it right where we need it. So at the end of the day, the most important thing you're going to need in a kill kit. When I say kill kit, I'm talking about the kit you're going to have in your bag that is going to allow you to take care of whatever animal you've processed or that you've harvested. So let's say it's a deer, you need to harvest the meat. Let's say it's something for fur, a coyote or a wolf that you need to skin. You have the tools that you're going to need to take care of the animal that you've harvested in whatever way that means to you. So at the end of the day, one of the, I'd say the most important tool you're going to need to have with you is some sort of a sharp blade, knife. In this case, I carry a Havalon, which is 1.6 ounces, including the blade, and it's a fairly versatile knife. I mean, if you're careful, I mean, it can be used as even just your regular round camp knife. I do carry a small multi-tool as well in my little other ditty bag, but this is not something I'm going to leave home really year round. But I'm also going to have some spare blades for it, which they are going to add some weight. And in this case, the Havalon specifically has a kind of a unique system of how it's supposed to take the blades out. If you've never seen one of these, it's not difficult, but you do got to be careful because it's a very sharp blade and you don't want to cut yourself. And so they provide this little case thing, which in and of itself weighs 0.5 ounces, and you place the blade inside the groove, shut the lid, and as you press down on it, this particular little case has got the little lip that's broken on it, but it makes it a little bit more difficult. It basically compresses the blade away from the little notch, the little groove that it goes in. And then to put the blade back on, just do that in reverse, it snaps in place, and you're ready to go. So I can usually get through an entire deer with 1-2 blades. An elk's going to take me 3 or 4 usually, depending on if I'm trying to bone it out or if I'm just doing the gutless method, or depending on which method I'm doing. If I'm hitting a lot of bone, it's going to last, you know, it's going to take more blades. But I'm going to carry with me multiple spare blades. It's something I don't want to run out of, so I can probably leave several of these behind, but I'm going to have at least 4 to 6 spare blades with me at any given time. I may be in a hunt, and often am in a hunt, where I have the potential of, I may have an elk tag, a deer tag, a bear tag, a lion tag, a wolf tag, and if the stars aligned, potentially I could be taking care of or processing multiple animals. And so I don't want to be left with a single blade or a single spare blade when in fact I might need several. So I've always got a few extra blades on hand. In this case, the Havalon has a few extra options for blade types. Open a little case here. And that is a complicated little putter, isn't it? Wow, that is, you tell if I open this little thing. There it goes. I'm opening it backwards. So I've got little saw blades, which honestly, if I'm packing with goats or something else, or if we're not far from the truck, I'll usually have a bigger saw, like an actual small pack saw that is definitely more user friendly. But I do carry these around in the event that the saw doesn't make sense to have in the pack, and maybe for time sensitivity, I don't want to have to deal with getting an antler, getting the antlers off nice and neat, which most every bone on an animal like an elk or a deer, you can cut around enough of the sinew that you can separate it without ever having to actually use a saw. But having a saw can actually, it can save a lot of time. If you need to get into the rib cage quickly or something, having a saw definitely can make a difference. But I don't use them all that often. I can put this back together here. So I would say it's an easy thing to have in the pack. It doesn't add a lot of weight to have these little spare saw blades, and I do see a purpose, a time when, especially if I was solo hunting and I was up against a time crunch, like it was going to be really freezing cold that night or something, and the sun setting, and I just needed to get something done quickly. Having some blades handy could make a big difference, just for being able to move a lot quicker through a processing of an animal. So, wow, these don't want to line up very well. It's mostly me, I'm sure, but having this little case here as well is also it's kind of a safety feature. When you have these spent blades, you don't want them just banging around in your pack, so you can have a space for them. Often what I'll do though is when I take the blade out of the package, I'll just put the used blade that I just took off and put it in the package that I took it off, and I'm just going to fold the lip over, and it'll protect it enough that I can put that in my little garbage bag or whatever that I'm hauling around. So what else do I have in here? I've got a spare lighter, which, by the way, if you don't spend a lot of time in the backcountry, you might not know this. These lighters can go bad. They'll eventually, the fuel can leak out over time, or they can get banged around. Even just sitting brand new in your pack, if you've got it in there, it's been in there for years, you're going to want to check this periodically and make sure that it's still got fuel and it still is going to light. You don't want to be hauling around something and expecting that as your backup and have it not work when you need it. And I will say one thing about these lighters: when your hands are extremely cold, it's in the teens or below 0 Fahrenheit, and you're dealing with the consequences of that cold, having a lighter that has the push button style igniter instead of the roll style igniter honestly can be a lifesaver. So do think about that. I always carry just a little wad of, this is Gorilla tape, the Gorilla brand tape. It's pretty durable stuff. If I need to wrap maybe a tag, tape a tag to, an antler or something like that so it doesn't get lost, sort of pulling something down a hill or repairing a piece of kit. I mean, I can tape up this bag if it had a hole in it. I've taped up holes in my pants. I mean, it's very versatile stuff, and it's a good thing to have in a kill kit situation if there's things that maybe need to be repaired as you're dealing with knives and such. And then last but not least, I always have a little bit of extra cordage of some sort. This is strong enough stuff, even though it's really, really a thin diameter cordage, that, I could hang meat out of a tree with it. I've got about 50 feet of cordage here. There's a lot of uses. Doesn't always get used, but it is something that's very useful to have in your pack. Now, the big question that we deal with ourselves a lot is how to take care of game meat when we're in the field and how to get it out. Do we want to use something like a big heavy duty game bag? This is a monster here. It's like a giant pillowcase. It's big enough for a moose quarter. This thing is, I could probably get all 4 quarters of a deer in here and still have plenty of room to spare. And it's durable enough that I can shut that up. I can cinch the top of the bag, and I can tie that off and hang that from a tree, and it's going to support its weight, or the weight of the meat that's in it. It's a pretty durable bag, but it is not light. If I can get that to balance on the scale there. We're talking 6.9 ounces, 7 ounces, excuse me, for just a bag. To put that in perspective, that weighs more than my bivy sack. It weighs more than some people's, pad they sleep on. So that's a lot of extra weight. And I'll usually only take these or something like this if I'm planning on being in the backcountry multiple days beyond when I harvest the animal. If I'm intending to harvest the animal and that's the end of my trip and I'm going straight out, then I'll actually opt for something like just simple garbage bags. My intent is to keep the meat clean and my backpack clean. So it's going to go in my pack, and I just need a way to keep the blood from my pack and the gunk in my pack from getting on the meat and vice versa. So I can carry one of these for each quarter, 1.5 ounces. So even 6 of them weigh 5 ounces. So less than this one bag, I can have 6 of these, and this will allow me to keep things clean. Now, again, I'm not going to want to hang meat in these for an extended period of time, because especially if it's warm outside, they're not going to let them breathe. It's not going to be ideal for that situation. But wintertime, you've got snow and you just need a clean place to set it. Put it in a garbage bag, set it off to the side, let it start to chill. And as long as you're getting it to the truck in a relatively short period of time, then the garbage bags are a good option. I will say that something like this, a lot of people might think, and I've had the thought myself over the years and even tried it, a really lightweight game bag, this one being 1.4 ounces instead of our 7 ounces, very lightweight. It's very stretchy, easily would do an elk quarter, but I find its value or utility to be fairly minimal. The holes in it are big enough that it can still get fly blown. It's not going to protect the meat from flies laying their eggs on it. It's going to allow it to, maybe it keeps the birds off of it, I guess, but that's That's about the extent. It'll keep it a little bit cleaner, but even dust is just going to get right through that, right onto the meat. So whereas this is going to keep the fly blown off as long as flies don't get inside it. It's going to keep the fly blown off. It's going to, you know, keep things fresh and clean. It's still going to, it's porous enough that it'll breathe. You know, this is honestly, this is ideal if you don't mind carrying the weight, or if you're going to need it and you're going to be in there for extended periods of time, you need to hang that meat and get it cooled down. Now I will say we also carry a number of gallon or even 2 gallon Ziploc bags with my garbage bag system. And I do that so that I can keep my, if I'm taking out organ meat, for example, the heart or the liver, I like to separate those. I like to even separate the tenderloins, keep them as clean as possible. And so they'll usually get their own individual Ziploc bag, and that'll keep them clean. Sometimes pulling a tenderloin out, it gets a little bit messy just because of its location. If you've got any sort of a nicked gut sac or anything like that, it can be a little bit gross. And so keeping a piece of meat like that maybe got contaminated and maybe needs treated a little bit differently back home, having those Ziploc bags can make all the difference in the world. And you can always use your garbage bag for that same purpose. In the vein of keeping things clean, I like to carry, let's see, where do they go? I like to carry some sort of rubber glove. Now, if it's earlier in the fall, summertime, late spring, I'm not expecting, you know, temperatures to really be below, you know, 40s or 50s. When I'm actually processing the animal, then something like these, a little bit more durable rubber gloves, they're reusable, and I can take my hand in and out of them. So if I need to get something off my phone, for example, I can pull my hand out of that, whereas smaller disposable gloves are much, much more difficult to manage. However, they are a lot lighter weight, but I'll take these usually as my primary glove in those warmer season hunts, 1.9 ounces. However, I will almost always still have just a backup pair of just little nitrile disposable gloves. So this little pair of gloves here, 0.4 ounces. So I'll have a backup pair or 2 of those, and they can be useful for a multitude of things, including first aid, if needs be. Now, if it's winter time, cold temperatures expected, whatnot, I've started using something like these Glacier gloves, which they're more or less waterproof in and of themselves and would keep your hands free of the blood and gunk, and they can be washed off, rinsed off afterwards, or in a creek, cleaned up a little bit. So they work in and of themselves. They're obviously heavier. They also are a good backup glove, 3.9, 3.8 ounces. But I'll also have these, I call them like calf birthing gloves. You know, if you're a vet or something, you're going to use something like this, or a lunch lady perhaps, or lunch fellow. So this is a pair of gloves. Actually, no, I think that's 3 pairs. Let's see, 1, 2. That might be 2 pairs, or one pair of gloves, 2 gloves. So those are going to go all the way up to my shoulder. Problem with them is they're so huge on your hand that you're not as tactile, you're as effective that way, but they're extremely lightweight, 0.5 ounces for the pair. I can have on even a regular pair of winter gloves if needs be, and put these on over the top, and my hands can stay warm while I'm processing the animal. Early this past, or late this last fall, the very last day of deer season, so it was the end of October, my then 14-year-old son was, he got his deer literally at last light, and we had, I mean, it was cold. It was snow on the ground. We were the last couple hundred feet of elevation we had to go. We were hiking through knee-deep snow, and I mean, it was probably in the 20s, and we had an hour and a half of processing to do to then get off the mountain, and we had a 3 or 4 mile hike down to the car from there. It was going to be cold. So this system treated me very well. My fingers didn't freeze. I was able to keep things clean, and my gear in proper working order, and it worked for that purpose. Most of the other deer we harvested earlier in the month were done with nothing more than either these black nitrile style gloves or these, just because most of them were during time periods when the lows weren't going to get below freezing, and the highs in the middle of the day were in the 50s and 60s, and we would have the opportunity to warm up if needs be. So a few other things that I'm going to have in my kill kit. I'm going to have some extra paper towels, and I really just I appreciate a clean processing system. It makes things so much better when we get home. The meat tastes better. I don't like to cross-contaminate if I was using a particular blade or the knife for trimming off the tenderloins. I don't want to also be using that same blade or the knife without any sort of cleaning, without a way to wipe it off before I go on to something else like the back straps or vice versa. So I'll have some paper towels. I can just wipe things off real quick as I kind of transition through things. I've got them there if I need to use a little bit for fire starter. I mean, a multitude of purposes. If you've got just an excess of blood buildup, you get a spill of blood on your boot or something, you've got a few extra paper towels to wipe it off and just keep things a little bit more neat and tidy. Wintertime, cold temperatures expected. I'll usually throw in a pair of hand warmers or the boot warmer, toe warmer version, or both, depending on how cold it's really going to be. And I can slip those inside my gloves so that I can go, if I'm in a sedentary state, I'm not producing a lot of heat as I'm just there working on an animal. This will help keep my my toes and my extremities a little bit warmer, so I can be a little more comfortable. You're just not going to be as effective if you're fighting the cold. If it's a battle against the cold the whole time, you're going to be slower on the cleanup. You're going to make more mistakes. You're more likely to make a mistake like cutting yourself. If you're really cold, your fingers are cold, your toes are cold, you're not going to be the right frame of mind. So you want to do things to stay warm, even if that means if it's going to be really, really bad when you get there and you have the means to light a fire first before you even touch the animal. Do it. Make a little fire off to the side so you can work on a quarter, pull it off, set it, put it in the bag, warm up for 10 minutes, go back, do another quarter, warm up for 10 minutes, and back and forth. But staying warm, staying clean, having a way to keep the meat clean, that's the name of the game when it comes to preparing your kill kit. And like I said, if you want to use it for some extra purpose like I do as a shooting rest, set it up that way. Set it up in a way that makes sense for you. I will be, honestly, this next year, I'll be looking at putting together a lighter weight bag that still performs the exact same function. This one has served me very well over the years. Very durable. It's just a little bit of extra weight. If I made this out of Dyneema or even a lighter weight nylon, I could save an ounce or two, and again, ounces add up to pounds. So If you have any questions about this or other videos, post them in the comments below. Any thoughts to share about, you know, how you do things a little bit differently? Everybody's got a little bit different process. Makes sense for them. And do it make sense for you. Oh, I will add one other thing I do carry with me is I have a rangefinder every time I'm hunting, and it takes batteries. And in the event that it's really, really cold and for some reason the battery goes dead before I try and check these periodically, I can have a spare. I actually usually carry two if it's on extended hunt. So I have a spare for my rangefinder in my kill kit, just as a backup of a backup. So anyways, thanks for watching. Any other questions, put it in the comments. Thanks.